Actually, I don't have live sounders, so so I'm literally just gonna hit the live button here. The suspense. Well, there's oh, here we go. Starting to get people tuning in. We'll give them another minute or so, and then I will go back and edit this audio and plug in our intro.
I don't know. I think this is good. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this.
We can acapella
it. I don't even remember what it sounds like right now.
You're listening to the Uncontested.
Have Silva pop on real quick. Yeah.
Well, here we go. Welcome to the Uncontested podcast. I am your host for tonight, Tayler, joined by my fellow co-host, Justin.
Hello, everybody.
My man, Kamiar.
I'm just trying to watch this Nuggets game. It's pretty close. There's like 3 minutes left.
I walked away, and yeah, I was feeling pretty confident about it when I started up the stream here. And you jumped on and told us it was as close as it was.
I just assumed he was going to be, I assumed it was going to be bad.
Jokic is gone, right, exactly.
After Jokic was gone, so I turned it on in the podcast room, and I was like, oh my God, it's a 5-point game, 3-point game. What is going on?
Well, here we are. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Have quite a few of you tuning in while you guys are probably watching the end of this game like Kamiar.
Yes.
We are the official podcast of Boomtown Hoops and a proud part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Our fearless leader, Jacob, is on vacation this week. So you guys are stuck with us three.
The B team.
Kind of, yeah, that's right. The big three. The big
that's
three.
That's not what I said.
He said the B team.
Oh, the B team? I think you said the dream team.
Whatever.
Team.
Either way.
Hey, it's fine. But we still have a podcast for you guys tonight and have some fun content that we wanted to go through. So without further ado, I mean, obviously the Suns are making a little bit of a comeback here, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. But as some things I wanted to run by you guys, when we were doing our locker room hangouts throughout the week, we had a lot of questions about none other than Kristaps Porzingis. And there's also another player I want to bring up to you guys as well. But let's start with the zinger. I want to pick your guys' brain on Kristaps. So obviously, or earlier in the week, Tim McMahon of ESPN reported that Porzingis feels more like an afterthought rather than a co-star, like he was hoping for when he was traded for here, however long ago that was, which it seems much longer than it was, but it was only a couple of seasons ago. He also relayed some quotes from Porzingis, basically about how mentally tough it's been on Porzingis just with this adjustment, going from kind of being that guy to more of a role type player, especially playing alongside Luka. And this has led to quite a bit of trade speculation. Like I said, a lot of the listeners were jumping onto the locker room this week and asking us questions about it. Obviously, there's been a ton of stuff on Twitter, and not just Thunder related, right, but also other teams. Obviously, you have the whole connection. We've talked a lot about this in the past, but Presley was rumored to have promised Kristaps Porzingis in 2014, the draft, when he withdrew, and then obviously he decided to go back in 2015. He's drafted by the the Knicks. The rest is history. Now, something just to keep in mind: Porzingis turns 26 this August, which isn't very old, but he's owed $101.5 million over the next 3 seasons. And has a player option, I believe, for year 4. So that is not a very team-friendly contract. So my question for you two, should the Thunder trade for Porzingis? And if so, what are some hypothetical trades? What would Dallas ask for in return? Even if you guys disagree if the Thunder should trade for Porzingis, what do you guys think that would make a trade work from the OKC side?
I don't even know. Yeah.
Bring him into the Sam Presti Thunder Career Rehabilitation Center and see what could happen. I mean, Porzingis as he is today, I mean, he was pretty awful in the playoffs and
very awful.
I'm so sorry that you feel like an afterthought, but you played like an afterthought. And so maybe there's a correlation there.
The only reason you were a thought is because you played so bad. Otherwise you would have been an afterthought. So
but like, I don't know. I think it all comes down to, for me, if I'm the Thunder, it comes down to what are our objectives over the next coming seasons. Is it to put together a team that's going to like make some noise in the playoffs? Is it to continue to develop and chase a lottery pick next season? I think there's some question marks around the direction of the franchise next season. And I think the answers to those questions pretty strongly dictate whether or not a Porzingis move would make any sense for the team.
I don't like, if he wants to not be a almost like relegated co-star to like a role player, he needs to play better. Like he wasn't even bad just in the playoffs. He wasn't even that good in the regular season, both years.
Nor can he really stay healthy, which is a huge
he can't stay healthy.
Here.
He doesn't handle the ball that much, and Luka's a very ball dominant player. And so, like, if you're not hitting 3-pointers, of course, he was the man out in the Knicks, but then, like, the Knicks got a better player in Julius Randle. And like, what does he want? So, I mean, of course, he needs to go somewhere else because his role is not going to get any different in Dallas. Actually, Dallas is probably willingly ready to move on from Porzingis too in his contract because they want to win titles with Luka. And so, I mean, what would that trade even look like if OKC were to even engage with Dallas other than Horford and Zinger straight up? Like, unless it's just Horford and Zinger straight up, or it's like Horford and Porzingis in like a couple seconds or so, like future seconds. It's not going to be anything big. You're not going to get anybody. And honestly, for the Mavs, they don't really have anybody that you'd be interested in. They're all kind of like older guys, except Luka. Luka's the only younger piece that you would want from that
and Brunson,
team.
But I don't
Brunson's
think they're
kind of
going to
like,
up either.
I thought Brunson was older. I thought he was older.
No, true. And relative to the Thunder players on this roster, yes, he's 20. I mean, I'll look it up. I think he's 24, 20, basically around the same age as Porzingis.
I know he's on a team-friendly contract because, like, I don't know. It just doesn't. That's the only trade that I feel like that could happen because OKC, they're not looking for anything really from Dallas other than maybe rehabilitating Porzingis' career and trading him for something more than he has been, like several other guys.
Brunson's 24, so he is.
Oh,
right
wow.
around.
Okay, I didn't know that.
He's a little younger.
He's earning like $2 million, right? Like somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's very team friendly. Very team friendly. Also, they have THJ, but he's going to be. Oh, this is off the top of my head. He's either unrestricted or he is a restricted free agent this coming offseason. So they're going to have to try and decide what to do there. If you trade him away, I don't know. He's been a huge. I mean, I think that was something that stood out to me in that Tim McMahon article from ESPN is that THJ really has kind of taken that secondary offensive role where they being the Mavericks really intended for Porzingis to have that role, but he can't stay healthy for starters, and he really is kind of struggling taking the back seat. So with all that being said, I've seen multiple reports, not even from McMahon, but others as well, talking about how there's like rival executives who view that contract of Porzingis kind of as like an albatross, right? So it's going to be tough. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Justin, when you mentioned, there's other pieces that have to fall into place before OKC would make a trade like that, because you could make Horford for Porzingis straight up work. Mm-hmm. But Dallas is obviously going to try and extract value for that. They want value for Porzingis, and they're going
to be the other way around.
Exactly. So that's why it's going to take a while. But also that may give OKC a little time to get those draft picks in place, right? You go through the draft, you get your hopefully 2 top 5 picks, and then maybe you're a little more willing to trade for a guy like Porzingis.
Did you guys see I think it was a Bleacher Report kind of mock trade that had the Thunder sending Baisley to the Mavs for Porzingis?
No.
So dumb. OKC is not giving anything of value in this spot because they don't need Porzingis like Dallas needs to get off of his contract and his awful play over the last couple of years.
Exactly. And I think we've seen that. Like OKC has not been afraid of an albatross contract over the past few seasons. Like they'll take it on, and historically, they've turned it into something. That's why I said it half jokingly, but like the Sam Presti Career Rehabilitation Center, Who knows what Porzingis looks like with a Thunder development staff?
It wouldn't be the first time that Presti traded for a former high lottery pick from Dallas. No, I know was not drafted. Right. He was drafted obviously by the Philadelphia 76ers, but was traded to Dallas. The whole hot dog scenario, which is just
does Porzingis like hot dogs?
Yeah, right.
OKC would get two things back in that deal. They would get Kristaps' terrible play and his awful contract, and then you would go to Pokashevsky, you go to Poku and say, do the exact opposite of what this guy is doing, because everything he is doing is bad and what you're doing is good.
Well, clearly they would bring him in so that Poku could mentor Porzingis.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true. See that confidence? We want you to do that.
Yeah, for real. It's like just act like you don't give a shit.
See
just
that
play
strength?
basketball.
We need you to get that. Yeah.
And I wondered out loud yesterday with Tayler and Jacob while we were eating Bobos. And I asked, what is the prerogative of the Trailblazers? Are they trying to get more pieces around Dame, like retool again? Because they retooled last year. They gave Robert Covington, a massive contract, and a lot of other things. And are they trying to retool around Dame, or are they just saying, and because that would involve getting rid of probably Nurk and CJ, or at least definitely CJ, right. Or are they going to try to blow it up and start new sometime, just way, way early? Because it feels like they can still retool a little bit,
right?
And what would you do if Dallas offered you Porzingis, of course, that awful contract, and 3 to 4 future firsts unprotected? Would you take that for Dame so Dallas can go win a title? Or Portland probably says no, because they still feel like they can go win something, even though they're never going to finish higher than the 5th in the West. And but Dallas, of course, they would do that in a heartbeat, because that would definitely get them so much closer to a title.
Right. Well, okay. So, Kamiar, the first question you brought up to Jacob and I was more so specifically related to Dallas and just what do they do now? And obviously, we came to the Porzingis conclusion, and we started looking for Porzingis trades. And you brought up the Blazers, which I really liked a lot. And then also we talked about Boston. So I know. So let's dive into Portland a little more, because I think that is pretty interesting. That is the sort of player that they could use. Again, though, this is all hypothetical, because have we really seen this from Porzingis? Like this Porzingis we saw in New York, when he was young or younger. We haven't seen that post-series injury. Not in Dallas. Some people are saying maybe that's because of Luka. Now, if you can get that old Porzingis, even something close to that in Portland, I think that's a perfect player to pair alongside Dame. But everybody's worried about that. Right. Exactly.
That's a big if. And Portland's in a tough situation that reminds me, it's not totally dissimilar from OKC Russell Westbrook marriage. It's barring an extreme example, they're not going to break that up. Oklahoma City made that decision. It worked out, and Portland would have to do something similar. I think the much more easy route for them is to keep Dame locked down, keep shuffling pawns around him, and you're probably going to keep getting similar results unless you somehow land another superstar like Kawhi to Portland this offseason or something crazy like that.
Right.
Changes the conversation, but that with
Porzingis doesn't change that, especially for that dollar amount. You don't trade for that salary, and
that especially if you're Portland, because Porzingis doesn't do it, like you said. So you're going to need more pieces, and that contract on your books severely limits what other pieces you can go get.
I'm with you guys. That was a very good candidate, though, I think, from Kamiar, because obviously another team, I don't know if I should say desperate. Maybe that's not the right term there, but obviously ready for change. There needs to be a change there amongst player personnel to build around Dame and to try to contend and hopefully win a championship when you have Dame at his peak. But I'm with you guys. I'm not sure if Porzingis is that guy at that contract, and that's like the common thing we're running into. Now, obviously, there's an interesting one with Boston. But before we get into that, do you guys have any other teams that you guys think Porzingis could be a potential trade partner for Porzingis?
Well, I would just like to reiterate my trade was those picks and Zinger for Dame to Dallas, just because if Portland's ready to blow it up because like it's clearly not working, they're not going to get anybody better than Nurk and CJ. Then like at what point do? You trade it at its highest, like stocks, right? Like Dogecoin is going to the moon, sell everything at its peak. So, I mean, OKC did it a little bit later down the road, and it was still, of course, very beneficial for them to do so. But I don't, man. CJ's not getting any younger. He's getting hurt more yearly. Nurk is same. Dame is the only one on that team that keeps on going. And at Portland, like they're a smart franchise, and they're about to get a new head coach. I wonder if they think about going in a different direction. But at the same time, I could see them just locking it down and trying to retool and getting a wing, in which I've been very adamant about the Nurk and CJ to Boston for Jaylen Brown.
That's something else we talked about last night, which honestly, talk about perfect for Portland. There's just Jacob and I's stance was that there's no way that's
everybody of course, like everybody, like right. I think Justin's face, I can tell, like he's like they wouldn't do that.
You had a valid point, but you were saying no, it's not just that trade.
Danny Ainge wouldn't do a Nurk and McCollum and maybe a pick for Jaylen Brown. But to me, it's not a lateral move for either squad. I mean, you in Boston, you're going to trade Kemba. You can start Marcus Smart. You can have CJ over at the 2 if you wanted to, have Jason Tatum at the 3, and then Nurk at the 4 or 5, whatever you want to do with them.
That's interesting.
There's enough defense on that team to make up for what CJ doesn't have. And of course, Portland, they're over there, and they get a legitimate wing that will complement Dame so well, and he's defensive minded, and there's a lot to that I really love, but I'm just going to stop talking about it.
Interesting.
And the Suns are about to win, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
Sweet. So that Portland's an interesting one. I see what you're getting there.
It's a winning move.
I know. Okay, so yes, the Jaylen Brown. That's a whole nother topic. But I do like it. What other teams, just quickly, do you guys, other than Boston? Because we're gonna get into Boston here. It's gonna be a really good transition. I mean, that's like such a Sacramento Kings move. That's such a Sacramento Kings move. And I'm not saying they should do it. I'm not saying it's a good trade for them, but that's such a Sacramento Kings move.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if a team like Memphis that's trying to win now would take something.
That's interesting. And you have
he's not that much older than Brandon Clark.
Yeah. You could that's interesting. I like
Memphis that. Memphis is clearly trying to win now.
I like that.
Like they pushed and pushed and pushed for the playoffs.
Right.
I'm sure there are teams in the East that would really like Porzingis on their team. I just can't think of any right now.
I think like the
Detroit wants everybody.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, but that the whole promise thing, like that's such a Troy Weaver target. I can see Troy at least inquiring about Porzingis there. But I do want to talk about Boston because this is going to be a really good transition.
This is me inquiring about Porzingis.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna call Justin. You have to pick up the phone. Ready?
Ring.
Hello.
Hey, I'd like to inquire about Porzingis.
Okay.
Does he still suck?
Does he have real knees or are they metal now?
Magic legs. You guys ever seen Forrest Gump? Titanium alloys.
Yes, Forrest Gump. Porzingis is tall. Porzingis is tall. Forrest Gump. That is right up there with Pat Julius Randle for Kamiar.
Unbelievable.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, so one target, again, we were having this conversation in Jacob's living room last night. And
Jacob's here in the chat.
Oh, he's
on
vacation. He's driving and tuning in. I love it. Now, one team that he mentioned for Porzingis, and this is going to be a really good transition because there's another player I want to talk about, but the Boston Celtics. that is a type of player I think that would hit really well with those guys, assuming that Kamiar's trade doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, I bet they
but
would
if you're
really love
keeping Jalen,
Porzingis in Boston for some reasons.
yeah, right. Fair. But Tatum, Brown, you bring in Porzingis, you have a versatile big, hypothetically, if he can stay healthy, who can run the floor on both ends and can also create more offense for you. I think that would be, again, hypothetically, a good fit. But that's going to, you have to salary match there. So the next player I want to bring up is Kemba Walker. Farbod Nashari, Bleacher Report. He ignited trade speculation for Kemba this past week when he reported that Kemba and the Celtics are, quote, likely to move forward from their relationship this offseason in a mutual agreement between parties. And basically, he talked about how Ainge was wanting to center a trade package around Kemba plus draft picks and whatever else for Drew Holiday. And obviously, we know what happened there. Drew ends up going to Milwaukee, but this became known to Kemba, who obviously wasn't super happy about that. And he was kind of hurt by the front office as much as he loved his teammates, still does. That rubbed him the wrong way. So like Kamiar mentioned, you have a new front office, or at least head of the front office. You have Ainge stepping down and you have Brad Stevens stepping up. So all of that being said, there's a lot of context here. Like Kemba missed 29 regular season games this past season, plus the last 2 playoff games. He's kind of like Porzingis. He's also set to earn $36 million in 2021-22 this next season, which makes a trade very difficult. And his contract expires at the end of 22-23, which he has a player option for $37.7 million. Not great. So again, is that a Porzingis for Kemba kind of trade? Is that something that's possible? But also, there's been there's been speculation on Thunder Twitter about OKC being a trade candidate for Kemba. So give me your guys' thoughts on Porzingis for Kemba, and then what about bringing Kemba into OKC?
Thunder Twitter speculates about every free agent coming to Oklahoma City.
And they never do.
They're still speculating about like bringing Bronny in. And drafting Bronny and bringing in LeBron. So
yeah, let's do it. In terms of Kemba to OKC, probably not dissimilar from my feelings on Porzingis. How many draft picks you want to throw in? Like we'll pay your giant contract. That's cool. We have the flexibility to do that. If I'm the Thunder front office, that's my first question: is how many draft picks are you throwing in with this? In which case, I'll entertain the offer. However, I'm not a part of the Thunder front office, so I don't get to make those decisions. But I think for me, it's as simple as that. We'll take this in, we'll pay the money because we have the flexibility. If we get some future draft capital to add to our war chest, then I think that's the way you make it work. The funny part for me is that money-wise, wouldn't Boston have to take Horford back? Which
I know. So you're bringing Horford back to Boston. Yep.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Brad Stevens has like a big soft spot for Horford, and so that's like an ideal scenario. I don't know.
So this is pretty funny from our guy Sean. He'd rather listen to Justin sing the French national anthem on the podcast again than trade for Kemba.
Okay.
Wasn't that bad?
It doesn't make make sense to trade for Kemba, regardless if you're getting assets back, because you can't sit him, because if you plan to trade him somewhere down the road, you would like to see him play relatively well. And if you're going to play him, and OKC has already drafted maybe a guard, or maybe a guard and a wing, who knows? You're going to want to get minutes for Lou. You're going to want to get minutes for Shea. You're going to want to get minutes for Ty Jerome and Teo Maladone and everybody else. When's Kemba going to get on the floor? He won't. So what's the point in training for him other than unless you're just like, you plan to get him, but then you can't trade them immediately with stuff. I don't know what that stuff is. But unless you're just planning to flip him immediately, right after, there's no point in doing so. And so I don't know. I just don't think it would be a good idea for OKC to get involved with Kemba.
Agreed.
because it would take minutes away from all the young guys. And maybe OKC has drafted Cade Cunningham,
Exactly.
Jalen Green, or Jalen Suggs. And
Exactly.
so there's no point in doing so.
So you guys both crush it, and that was the only other thing I was going to mention. Obviously, this Thunder team is guard heavy, but if you end up with one of those top 5 picks, which we'll talk a little bit about here soon, it is likely that you will draft another guard, and in doing so, you don't want Kemba taking up those minutes. So it really does depend on the return. Boston, I think, would just have to kind of just be ridiculous and throw a lot of draft picks or other assets Presti's way for him to take that on. But it's not worth rehabbing another reputation in terms of Kemba Walker at the risk, or not even at the risk, at the detriment of developing your youth and these super talented players. Look, in my opinion, Shae's been held back enough. And I've been on record. I'm not saying he was held back these past couple of seasons. I'm just saying it's time to let him loose. It's time to, when you draft your prospect, I let him loose. Who cares? Worst that happens is you guys being us, the Thunder, they're going to, you lose games. That's great. You're in the lottery again the next season in another great draft. And so all that being said, I think I'm with you guys. It's not worth trading for Kemba unless they just blow you away.
At the same time, that's what makes Porzingis to OKC more likely, I suppose, because
of the position.
He's playing in a position that, I mean, you've got Poku, Bazley.
Poku's more small forward than, right.
Bazley too, who's also more like a 3 or 4. And Porzingis can play 4 or 5. Would not want him at the 3 at all, of course, because Poku has so much more range and athleticism when less injuries, of course. But that's what makes that more palatable and more easy, because if he does well, like you would expect him to, like pick and pop with Shea and pick and pop with Porzingis would be really, really fun to watch, especially if you played Porzingis at the 5. And at the same time, I would be a little bit worried that if everybody was healthy, you add that another top 6, 7 pick in. I mean, of course, if you get pick, 8 or whatever, you get pick 5 too. And so, I mean, if any of that were to happen, you're adding another player to the rotation. And I just feel like that team could actually probably push for a play-in game, especially Porzingis kind of did, make his career a little bit more than he had been, kind of like a revival. So
all about fit, and that's kind of
go a lot of ways.
Yeah, right. And back to our original, or the beginning of our conversation, and that's something that Justin mentioned, is it's not a trade you make immediately. It'd be something you have to kind of wait on. So you wait until after the draft. You wait to see how your roster is forming out, who you end up cutting, etc. Then maybe you go ahead and make that, like Kamiar said, because it's likely that that's the position that you're more likely going to have a need for. A really good conversation there for both Kemba and Porzingis. I think we covered that really well. But guys, exciting news. All of us have been very, very anxious, especially, I think, Jacob, myself, going to Tankathon a lot, hitting the sim button.
I think about it like once a week, and I'm like, hey, I should see how that goes.
Go and Tankathon.
Yeah, and then
me and Jacob wake up first thing in the morning. Our alarms go off, and we're like, Tankathon.
Too much, man. Too much.
It is
too much stress. Too much stress in your life. Just like
100%.
And wait for it to happen, man.
My worth.
Stop and wait for it to happen. And what I've been more thinking about over the last couple of days would be just wanting to gauge the Houston fans' reaction instead if their name pops at 5.
100%.
Like, I'm going to get on Twitter and not even care if OKC gets 4, 3, 2, or 1. I'm just going to be like, you did all this for nothing. You
and
want
the Rockets end up with
losers.
pick 18, which is the Miami's pick.
That'd be it'd be wonderful.
So good.
100%. That's what I've been thinking about. I didn't care about the Thunder's pick in that situation.
The Rockets,
because I know the worst OKC's pick can get is 8 or whatever, but then they would get the 5th pick. And so even 7
or
and
7
18,
and 15 or 8, 7 and 18. Yes.
I'm totally okay with. I don't know about you guys, but I'm fine knowing that OKC's got Shea, Dort, Poku, whatever. You're still gonna get a quality player because there are roughly at least like 9 guys that are pretty good players, and then you can find some guys later on in the lottery. Like, I'm not worried. You guys seem stressed out. I feel fine.
It is not the end of the world, especially with all the plethora of assets that Presti has. Yes, he would be able to combine those and trade up. But man, I really, 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 really want one of those top 5 top 5 picks.
But at the same time, if Boston does offer you their first rounder from this year for Kemba, I'd probably do that.
And then you have more assets to try and trade up. That's a good point. Good point.
18 and 16 for 13.
Yeah. That's a good point. And then I like that idea. Now, with that being said, all of this is relevant until a week from this coming Tuesday when we finally figure out where we're going to be in the draft. So we have the draft lottery a week from Tuesday. This is probably something I should have saved, or we should have saved for next Sunday. But sorry, Jacob, you're going to have to find something else to do because I need the content. So here we are.
You lose.
So I am going to share my screen here. And we're going to go to good old tankathon.com. Shout out our friends over at Tankathon. And guys, what I thought we could do is we can go through the lottery. We're going to send this 3 times. And if we do, all this being said, if we end up like, for example, 2 straight rolls or sims on Tankathon where we end up with the same picks, I'll do it again so it's a little different. Hopefully we're in a little bit of a different range because I want to talk briefly. This is kind of like a warm-up for our on Wednesdays. We're going to start diving into draft prospects. So I thought this would be a fun way to kind of wet everybody's feet with this, and then also get ready for the lottery here a week from Tuesday. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and sim. I'm going to pick your brains on some players that OKC could draft at each sim.
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
Roll. Here we go. Drum roll sounder. Just pretend to say, there we go. Here's the first one.
Is that a motorboat?
Yeah. Ooh, this is an ugly one. Better start out ugly though, and finish strong. So OKC was 6 and 18. That Miami pick. So either of you can go first. It's up to you all. But if the Thunder were to pick at 6 and 18, no need to go in to deep depth of each of these players. But do you guys have a player at 6 and like a player 18 that you're interested in?
I think Scotty Barnes would be a name that a lot of people would point at.
Yeah. That's the great one there at 6. I like that one a lot.
Because
OKC as well.
OKC is not probably looking for a guard immediately. They're probably looking for best available. And what makes Cade Cunningham so good is that he can play on the wing because he's so big. And so I think OKC needs a wing more so than they need a guard. But in the top 5, top 6, you're going to take the best available player.
That's what I was going to say is this is probably a pretty bad cop-out answer. But I feel like there's going to be one player that everybody thinks is consensus top 5, and some team is going to overthink it and not pick them. And if OKC lands 6, they're going to have an opportunity to get them, whether that's Kuminga or whoever it is. Like
I like that.
I feel like it's already starting. Like when something seems so cut and dry, and then you have like 6 months to debate it and talk about it, eventually you end up talking yourself out of like the obvious choice. And some team, whether that's, well, in this scenario, it's probably Sacramento. Sacramento's probably overthinking this pick.
The amount of times we just like completely just get after, rip apart Sacramento on this podcast.
A strongly anti-Sacramento podcast. Like Sacramento's going to mess around and like overthink it and pick somebody outside of the consensus top 5, and then OKC's going to pick up Kuminga.
As long as OKC doesn't go after Davion Mitchell, that's all I care about.
Agree. I agree with you there.
That's probably who the Kings will go get for
real.
The
Kings, everything fell perfectly for them to get Luka, and they said, Marvin Bagley. It's like, what are you doing? He was there.
That is so true. Though. They would totally go for a Mitchell. Another guy like there, I think I might have mixed names up here, but Keon Johnson from Tennessee is a wing that I like at that position. Just raw athleticism, not a very good shooter, but it could eventually develop, but just has so much more talent.
Sounds
it's
like
very
a Thunder
different
guy.
than right.
Can't
But
shoot.
that's my point. It's a little different than a Thunder guy, I think, than drafting like further down like they have in previous seasons. This guy has a lot of athleticism, a lot of talent. It's not so much a homie as much as it is. Oh man, this is tough.
Who's a better shooter
like
than
KCP or like I don't know. But he's somebody to keep an eye on as well. And then like you guys said, or like you said, Kamiar, obviously a very big fan of I almost said Williams again. why do I keep doing that? I keep mixing up Zaire Williams and
Davion Mitchell.
No.
No.
Who'd you just say, Kamiar? We compare him to Draymond Green. Why am I going blank?
I don't know.
Scotty Barnes. Gosh,
Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes and Zaire Williams. I don't know why I keep mixing them up in my head. But yeah, so those are some interesting ones as well. Now, we're talking like we're getting into the weeds a little bit if the Thunder end up with pick 18. Do you guys have any just names off the top of your head that you think it doesn't have to be like, you go to a mock draft at pick 18, but somebody you could see hanging around at like right outside the lottery into like the beginning of the second round kind of player?
OKC doesn't get they don't get Jonathan Kuminga or anything, or even Atlanta really much of the top 5. To get a wing, I would like to see them go after a dude like Isaiah Todd. That would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like
now,
that.
for whatever reason, again, I mean,
Team
mock
Ignite.
drafts take with a whatever, but there's a lot of mock drafts who have him more like very, very end of the first round into the second, which seems kind of crazy to me. If you like Todd, you get him into workouts. I'm exactly with you, Kamiar. I think you take a guy like that at 18, especially
James
if you're in a position like you are.
Knight.
Oh,
Yep. I like Book
now
Knight.
I think Book Knight's going to skyrocket. I see him going in the lottery. I really do. But if he's still there, you take that in a heartbeat. And the other guy, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, I'd take a look at Moses Moody. I think that he's got a bit of he's one of those guys that seems like his draft stock is lower than I expected it to be. And, if you're picking at 18, I think he's worth a flyer. I think his ceiling is such a question mark that he'd be a good kind of home run swing for Oklahoma City.
I wonder if OKC would go after a center with those last two, with that last pick, if they didn't get Mobley in the first, because they need a center, and like they needed a center to get that first one started with KD and them, and of course Tyson Chandler didn't work out, and then they got Perk, and he actually made it work well defensively and leadership in the locker room. But they drafted how many dudes in a row that just were awful, and I mean, you need a center that's legit. And so if you don't get Mobley, you could get that guy from Texas or Greg Brown. There's a couple of guys
Greg
out
Brown,
there.
Kai Jones. I'm with you guys now. So both of you mentioned like Book Knight, for example. You mentioned Moody, Justin. I think both those guys are going to be probably gone by this point. Obviously, if they're not, you take them. I'm with you both. With that being said, my guy in this range who also could fall in this, could kind of fall in the same kind of situation where I think he could go a little higher, especially now that he's starting to catch the eyes more front offices and is really starting to impress. But JT Thor of Auburn, freshman wing, big body, long arms, just can catch fire, but solid defender, can see the floor. But the biggest thing was just his development from the beginning of his freshman year into that latter half. He's been working out with guys like Kuminga out there in Miami and like 4 or 5 other prospects. Again, we'll dive into some of these guys further in the coming weeks on Wednesday, so be sure to tune in on Locker Room. But JT Thor in this 18 range, I think would be a home run pick. So let's go back to Tankathon. Let's do this 2 more times. Hopefully it'll be a little different. Here we go. Okay, now we're talking. So we're 3 and 18. We already have talked about pick 18. Guys, if OKC ends up at pick 3, talk to me about who you want to pick 3. Let's talk some top 5 draft prospects.
Oh, man. Well, Cade goes first. I think that's just the case. And then you go look at New Orleans, and I mean, they're trying to get off Lonzo anyway, so they're going to pick one of Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs.
Yep.
So I'm very curious who would be left. I mean, that would leave you with Mobley. That would leave you with one of Suggs, Green.
Yep, exactly.
Kuminga. You could have Kuminga if you wanted to. I mean, is Mobley a can't miss prospect, or is he a guy that his floor? What is his floor and what is his
exactly?
Ceiling?
You're thinking along the lines I have been coming on. I'm with you here.
What is Mobley's floor? It's better than Jahlil Okafor.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think like floor you're looking at. Oh man, like imagine Nerlens Noel didn't go through his early struggles and has been a long-term starter in the league. Like I'm just making up a player here. But imagine Nerlens is just like, he's been a fine starting center, very versatile, but never could completely get together on the offensive end and still struggle some on the perimeter guarding the perimeter. That may be like a floor, I think, for Mobley. And then on the opposite end, you're looking at like obviously the super obvious comparisons that everybody's throwing out there, like the Chris Bosh's and there's a couple others.
KOC
kind of center
had shades of Christian Wood as well, which I thought was
Christian Wood now, which I get, but I still don't love that one. It's like Christian Wood, if Christian Wood could reach his full potential, and he still hasn't done that, right? I mean, it's being honest. He's been great the past couple of seasons, but I don't know. I guess
what would you want? What kind of center do you want? Do you want a Mobley guy? Do you want a guy like James Wiseman? Because I know the Warriors would like to maybe get off of him. I know
Sean just had a really good floor. Thaddeus Young as his floor.
Thaddeus Young's very
Thaddeus
good.
Young. Exactly. So that's a solid floor. I like that one a lot from Sean. And then ceiling, we're looking at like skinny Jokic.
See, I don't
skinny
know.
Jokic minus the passing.
And this is why I wish. This is why I wish that Ludgence Dort. This is why I wish he was like 4 inches taller, so we wouldn't have to worry about drafting a Jalen Green or a Jalen Suggs, because like you could just play Lou at the wing, and I know it's positionless basketball, and you can
still do that.
You can just say, hey, Kamiar, you can have Shea technically play at the 3, but he's the point guard the entire game. Like I get that, but I don't want to sacrifice the length on the floor. So I wish that Lou was just a little bit taller, but
that's a fair, very, very fair point.
I don't want Jalen Green because he's still raw, but he's like really, really good athletically. This team, the way they're building it, it seems more geared towards skill than just like raw athleticism. Hence the Poku selection. So I don't know, man. I'm going one of the 2 guards, but at the same time, Kuminga may surprise you, and I don't know.
That's fair.
I want a wing. But whatever.
Fair. Justin, what are you thinking?
I think assuming the hypotheticals that we put forth, that Cade's off the board first, and then either Suggs or Green is left. I think I agree with Kamiar. Like I'm probably leaning either Suggs or Green, depending on who's left. But I would be extremely pleased with Mobley. I think that we've talked about it. The pick and roll potential with Shea and Mobley would be so much fun from day one. Like that would be an incredible pairing. And I know that a wing makes a lot of sense for this team, but I think the type of big that Mobley is, plugging him in with Shea and giving Shea that outlet to pass to, because he is so good at getting to the rim, I think pairing him alongside Mobley would be tons of fun.
So this is what I wanted. And we'll dive into debates and breaking down prospects again. Be sure to tune in on Wednesdays for all of our listeners on the Locker Room app, because we'll actually get into these players. But guys, hypothetically, let's say the Thunder end up at number 2. I'm picking.
Hang on, we got one more spin, right?
We do have one more spin. But I'm picking Suggs or Green over Mobley every time. And I'm equally torn on both of them. But that's a good point. Let's go ahead and do one more spin. Hopefully it's not too similar. OKC at 5. OKC at 5 and
go up 5 and 7.
Okay, 5 and 7. So this is a unique one. This is a tough one.
That's the fun
that's
one.
That's a new. Yes. So we'll dive into this one. I was hoping we get like 1 or 2, 1 and 3.
That's the fun one. You could say, because if Jalen Suggs or not Green, Jalen Suggs could fall down that far, you're definitely probably going to have a shot at Kuminga.
Right.
You'll definitely have a shot at Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
And so like, what do you realistically go after? I mean, I would go with Kuminga, best available probably on the board. But man, that 7 spot. I mean, Scotty. I don't know if Scotty Barnes would be there anymore. Who else would even be there?
So if you're looking at 7. You're looking at guys like I mentioned Keon Johnson.
Yep.
Are you sure you don't want to draft Davion Mitchell?
So there's been a lot of talk about this.
Like 30 years old.
Yeah.
It would be a Presty thing. It would be a Presty move.
Yeah,
just
Scotty
to draft
Barnes,
anyway.
Jalen Johnson. Yeah, that's true. I don't want Kispert. Josh Giddey, somebody I talked about. I don't know. I don't like taking him that high. I like taking him more in like the 10 range. But Josh Giddey's another prospect. I mean, Trey Mann, Moses Moody, all those guys. But see, Zaire Williams, like those guys seem. I don't know if I take him that high. I want a prospect you can swing for the fences a little more. There's that center. I think it's off Turkey. I might be making that up. Alperen Sengun, somebody who he was the MVP
Penguin?
of. Yeah, Penguin. Not Enes Kanter, but he was the MVP of the Turkey. Let's see if I can find this. I just had it pulled up. Gosh dang it.
What about
MVP
Mo?
trophy in Turkey? Have made it difficult to beat. Yeah. Anyways, I think he's interesting.
What about Mo Wagner's brother Franz?
I know. I keep skipping over him. Like
pass.
He will be fine. He'll be fine. But for the Thunder, you don't want that kind of player. You want that kind of player like 2 seasons from now. Right. And so like you get a team like the Golden State Warriors to get a hold of him. Perfect.
I just trade it to some other team and get a
right. And I think I'm kind of, if you're at 5 and 7 of this draft.
Hey Atlanta.
Exactly.
We got this number 7 pick and some assets, and I know you don't want to pay John Collins all that money.
That's right. Well, look, okay. So in this scenario,
give me John Collins.
You have Detroit, you have Charlotte, you have Toronto, you have Golden State via Minnesota at 4, and OKC at 5. So you call up Golden State, you say we'll give you Horford. We'll take on your bad salary, although that's going to be kind of tough. We talked about this with Sam with the Light Years pod, because you probably have to take on like Wiggins, and Golden State really wants to hold on to Wiggins. But say you're able to tell like Golden State, we'll trade you whatever, and we'll trade you 5 and 7 just to get up to 4. That's interesting for both teams.
That's what I was going to say is if you get 5 and 7, what I like about it the most is the flexibility to, depending on how the first couple picks shake out and how you feel about the rest of the prospects, you could package those to try to get to 4. I think Kamiar shaking his head.
It's going to be tough. I'm with you there.
I'm very much in the more bites at the apple standpoint of like 5
fair.
and 7 has a much higher chance of getting one great player than just picking at 4.
But that's the move that's a King's move, and that's not what Sam Presti would do.
But it is interesting to be able to have that flexibility, though. Like you're not going to have that option if you have 5 and 18. So getting 5 and 7 makes that interesting.
Just as long as they don't draft like Josh Husted again in the first round.
Exactly. You don't want that. Yeah, right. You don't want him to like him. You don't want Presti to go and pick some like Poku project at pick 7 here. I'm with you there. So that was fun. That was a fun exercise. A lot of good insight there. We're going to dive into some of our chat questions. We have a little bit of time. One thing I kind of skimmed over because one of you guys hinted at it here a little bit ago is what would the Thunder do with that empty cap space? So a couple bullet points I have is like, obviously they can sign a restricted free agent or offer, obviously that offer sheet, and their team could match it, being John Collins, Zach Collins, Lonzo Ball, Jared Allen is a really, really fun one I was thinking about. Lauri Markkanen, we've talked a little bit about. There's some others out there as well. Obviously, you can keep the space open and fill it by trading for big contracts in return for assets, and you can even just do a combo of both. What do you two think happens here? Now that we've kind of gone through the draft, Thunder going to have some space open. What do they do? Especially if you trade Horford, like shoot.
They're going to have to spend some money, but I think that future flexibility still reigns supreme for Sam Presti and this organization. So I don't see them getting into a situation where, they're going to be hamstrung with a guy, or they're not necessarily, I don't think, looking to fully lock in their core or their guy for the future. However, I'm very interested in John Collins. I know we've talked about it privately in our group chat. We've talked about it probably on the air before, but for the same reasons that Evan Mobley's interesting to me. Paired with Shea, John Collins is very interesting in terms of like he makes the Thunder real good next year, like right from the get-go. John Collins makes OKC a very fun team.
It's true. Man, I don't know.
It is really true.
Like, because Presti like straight up said, he was like, listen, we're not gonna worry about time at all. We're not gonna like worry about competing now. We want it to happen organically. They're more worried about building something strong, so when they actually make it to the playoffs, they can do something with it instead of just being like a gentleman's sweep. And so I don't see them really going out and doing something big and splashy this offseason with the picks that they have. I think they might do that a couple years down the road.
I agree.
No, I think we're all in agreement there that there's some very fun names out there. Sean in the chat brings up a good point. Gary Trent Jr., I think he'll be a restricted free agent. Obviously, Toronto is going to want to hold on to him, but another guy you could at least throw an offer sheet at. There's a lot of fun prospects that we've talked about, but when push comes to shove, that's not the direction we see Presti going, unless you just hit the jackpot and you get Cade at 1, you get Kamiar at 5, you got Shea and Dort and Poku, and it's like, well, shoot, we have this cap space. Let's go ahead and bring in, right? Lonzo, you want to go, right? Lonzo, John Collins, just throw out all the offer sheets. So I'm with you guys. I think that's pretty good. Now, again, I don't have the Sounders. So I could pretend to be like Kawhi and do the da 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 da. But I'll save you guys. Save you guys from the pain. We'll go in and edit this afterwards.
I didn't know where you're sitting at.
You know what? Never mind. We're just gonna leave it. We're going around the association, and we have quite a bit to talk about here. But I thought the first thing we could talk about was the first game that we had today. We had the Brooklyn and Milwaukee Bucks series.
I love
Kyrie hurt. Kyrie's hurt at the end of the first half. He twists an ankle. Brooklyn fans are getting all mad because Giannis came in for a rebound. Giannis came in for. I was trying to say which way decide which way I was going to go there. He comes in for the rebound, and you have Kyrie come down and twist his ankle on Giannis's foot.
That big foot stepped out of bounds in Oklahoma City. Don't forget it.
Damn straight. Damn
right
straight.
And
Kevin Durant, big feet.
Kevin Durant suddenly said, "Oh my God, all the eyes are on me." He looked like a scared rabbit.
Yeah,
this man was ready to piss down his leg.
That's what I want to know. What do you guys think? We're tied at 2-2 now. What happens? Especially if Kyrie can't play.
Giannis finally just stayed in the paint like he needed to the first 3 games, and it worked. Oh my gosh. Pat Connaughton is Nick Collison bleeding from his face, just cannon threes. You love to see it, and I love to see the Nets lose. I'm really hopeful this series goes like 7 at least, and the Sixers just wrap that stuff up pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to the Nets losing maybe another game or 2.
I love it. I love it. I on the flip side of things, I was thinking about how many times Kevin Durant has had a postseason affected by injuries, and like it is kind of an incredible streak going all the way back to Oklahoma City, but then also his time in Golden State, and then now in his second year with the Nets after he spent the first year sidelined. It's interesting. We always talk about the Seattle curse. Maybe Kevin Durant is the Seattle curse.
Well, and didn't what he was just talking about coming back not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we see that? And so
he was talking about maybe for the finals.
Oh yeah, wow! I missed that. I completely missed that.
They could still make it. They could still make it. And
sure. I mean, you have Harden too sitting on. Like he's not that far away. It doesn't seem promising that he would return for this series, but he could always, like you guys said, if they push it to a game 7, you can get Harden to come in for a game 7, and that's a heck of a boost for your team.
We'll see. I mean, it has to be. I was thinking about that too, Justin. It has to be frustrating because you had him in OKC with Russ, and then Ibaka. Then they go to Golden State, and Clay and himself in general are the ones getting injured. Then he sits out, and there were rumors about him and Kyrie coming and playing in the playoffs and ruining the fun for everybody last postseason, and they didn't. And they get to this season, Harden goes out like after a minute. Kyrie comes down. It didn't look bad. But you could definitely tell Kyrie definitely hurt himself because it was just like a tweak, and all of a sudden he took that all the weight off of that leg and like immediately just went down. So I'm curious to see what happens in that series if Giannis just continues to stay in the paint, regardless of how many free throws he's missing.
So real quick before we move on, just quick fire. Give me your prediction, and I'll give you mine. Or I can go first if you want me to.
Give me Nets in 6. They'll probably win the next 2.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I was going to say Nets in 7.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So let's move on to the game that happened tonight, or the series that happened tonight. We have the Suns that ended up sweeping.
Nice.
Bring out the brooms. Point
I'm
guard.
so excited.
Chris Paul and the Suns being the Denver
4.
Nuggets. Just pretty phenomenal. A pretty wild stat here. I think it was Royce who tweeted this out.
Barkley has to be ecstatic right now.
Chris Paul and the 4 game. Oh, yeah. Barkley's having a blast. CP3, 25.5 points per game on 61.8% shooting, 58% from 3, 100% from the line, 41 assists, and only 5 turnovers.
God.
He's been playing well.
God.
That offense has been very, very fun to watch. Even
Very
like
fun.
It's made Jay Crowder look offensively like there.
Yes.
Yeah. And like it's
that
it's
was
made
a huge thing
Bridges,
there, right?
Yeah,
like he
Mikal
actually
Bridges and
stepped
Torrey
up.
Craig. It makes those guys look very good offensively, and what you saw the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
Where they've been dudes that just haven't been dribbling the ball that much. It's just really nice to see, and they're very fun to watch. It's not like they're much better than everybody else, like talent wise. You've got Devin Booker, who's a star. He's not a superstar. You've got Chris Paul, who's an aging star. He's still very good. And you have Ayton, who's like arriving, maybe. And then you've got a bunch of very good NBA players. They're not role players. They're not just like barely NBA players. They're just very good NBA players that aren't going to be stars at all in their careers. And they just are operating within their system at a very, very high level with each other and knowing what to do and when to do it on offense and defense. And it's just fun to watch. It's very fun to watch them.
Yep. What a job by Monty Williams. And I think back when he was in Oklahoma City, I wanted him to be the head coach of the Thunder so badly. Obviously, lots of reasons why that didn't happen, but I'm super happy to see him thriving out in Phoenix. And I think that, their success, as much as it gets attributed to CP3, you can't overlook Monty Williams either. True. I think, especially with those role players, like you were talking about, Kamiar, like everybody's bought in, everybody's playing the right way. They're doing the right things. And I think that shows a lot of his coaching.
Like, remember when Dario Saric was an integral piece of that Sixers team, and now he's coming off the bench for Phoenix and playing relatively well in that role, and he got Frank Kaminsky
as a center. He was playing center for the
Cameron Payne
Sixers.
Is actually playing really well, and he's getting Jokic ejected and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah, like, hit in the face.
We haven't even mentioned that.
It was very fun.
I think that was a good fan. I mean, look, I get it. And maybe I'm rooting a little too hard for the Suns here, but
their mascot's a gorilla in a Suns jersey, man.
Can't beat that.
I think that was a good call to give Jokic the flagrant 2 based off the rules. Now,
I thought it was going to be a flagrant one.
I also understand the idea that you want the best players on the floor for the product of the game.
You're going to eject the MVP,
and Jokic he's not a dirty player. This was his first flagrant ever since he's played in the NBA. It was a lot of frustration being,
for sure,
right, and it wasn't even necessarily intentional as much as it was just like
him and Book were going at it, and Book was actually jawing, talking in his face, and then Jokic had like no emotion on his face, and it was freaking me out.
Right?
It's not like good in Serbia.
Yeah, I was like very uncomfortable. I was like, what's going on in the back of Jokic's mind? Because his story coming from like the Soviet bloc,
he's got some killers.
He's got some like really, really intense stories. I don't think Devin Booker's very aware of. Like,
I was like, well, I have the Kardashian bodyguards.
Because Jokic had no emotion on his face, and I was like, he's going to kill him. It's going to be terrifying.
It won't be him. He'll send somebody to kill him.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't mess with Jokic. He probably knows secrets.
Well, Jacob, our guy Jacob's been tweeting this out since like game 2, like Suns in the finals. It's looking fairly likely. So the last series I want to touch on here very quickly before we head out here. We got the Jazz and we got the Clips. It's been a hell of a series so far on both ends of the floor. Who wins? Who comes out of the West?
The NBA runs
who
through
wins
Phoenix.
this series, and then who comes out of the West?
The NBA runs through Phoenix. You hope it is Utah, because I just hate the Clippers, and also for draft purposes and stuff like that, and for Kawhi purposes, possibly leaving. But I mean, Donovan Mitchell today talked about how it hurts when he lands on his feet. And I'm like, well, that's not good because you shoot jump shots, so that's bad. And
that does. I hadn't heard that. Actually, really scares me.
Mike Conley is still, of course, not healthy. Jordan Clarkson has not been the guy that you have thought he was, and of course, I mean, it was really smart of the Clippers. They are just interchangeably double teaming Donovan Mitchell at the top of the perimeter and forcing his hand elsewhere, and nobody's making that play elsewhere. And Rudy Gobert is a negative offensively. And so I don't know. It's tough to say. I still want to say Utah because they've got better players. They're deeper. Okay, they're a deeper team. They may not have better players. Kawhi and PG are better than. Is PG better than Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, I was about to. Yeah, I know.
PG's definitely.
He's
like
not as reliable as Donovan Mitchell.
PG is definitely top 3 best players in that series. I don't know if he's better than Donovan Mitchell, but when I want to say Utah still in 6, but I don't know. But and of course the NBA runs through Phoenix, so they're going.
What do you think, Justin?
I agree. I think Utah still pulls out that series. I think this goes one of 2 ways. Either the Clippers just look like they come alive like they did against Dallas, or it goes the way of, say, OKC Utah from a few seasons ago, where it looked like Utah was in another planet for game 1 and 2. And then they came back to OKC and OKC blew them out. And then it went right back after that. And Utah was just dominating the Thunder for the next 2. I could very much see that happening. We're like, okay, Clips, you got one. Congrats. And then Utah just goes back with it and cruises.
Utah, other than Donovan Mitchell, is going to get hot at some point because they have not. And Donovan Mitchell is just playing out of his mind. And the night, like last night, where Kawhi is like 9 of 19, but he's got 22 points, and they've got as many shot attempts as they do points. Like, look at this performance. Like, this is not a good performance. You've made 23 points. You shot the ball 22 times. At some point, Jordan Clarkson is gonna get hot. At some point, Jingles is gonna get hot.
I like that a lot.
And I just feel like that especially with them seeing Donovan Mitchell and they know him, and with Mike Conley probably maybe coming back next game, or definitely for Utah when they go back home, I think that there could be a lot of fun things happening in Utah. And what a final series that would be between Utah
that's what I
Phoenix,
said.
because they are both teams are both deep and talented and have a system, and I'm very excited to see what that would look like.
So Jake and I have talked about this past couple of podcasts, right? You have your stars and Booker and Donovan Mitchell, your shooting guards. Then you have your point guards, assuming health. You have CP3 and you have Conley. Then you have like your wing defenders and Jay Crowder, and you have the whole
Jay Crowder
thing.
spent some time in Utah. Remember?
Yeah, true. Exactly. You have Ingles, you have Bogdanovich, but then you have Michael Bridges on the other side for Phoenix, and then all the not even just players. DeAndre Ayton. The center battle there would be a lot of fun with Rudy Gobert, but then the coaches as well. Justin mentioned you have Monty Williams, and then on the other side you have Quentin Snyder. Just so much fun there, but. I kind of got like trapped into this. It might have been last Sunday or the Sunday before, but Jacob made me pick my predictions for these series, and I was like kind of going with like the popular.
What is he like,
Thanks for all
Voldemort?
these-
Is he making you do things against your will?
Yeah, yes.
It's
Exactly.
the
That's
Bubbleless
what-
charm.
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And so for this
You
series,
gotta sound more dead. It's got to be like Harry Potter.
there it is. Yeah. it's a
Why
little
does
more
why
calm.
does Voldemort sound like the Count from Sesame Street?
Harry Potter. Ah.
Are we? Have we seen them in the same room before? I mean,
Mm.
It's true.
Taylor, who
the
do you
Uncontested,
pick
making you guys think deep.
in the Sun series, Taylor?
Who do you predict? I had Clippers in 7, so I'm gonna stick with my guns here, even if I'm rooting,
Gross.
even if I'm rooting for the Jazz.
Man, Pat
Why
Bev be fooling y'all.
PG
Pat Bev be
getting it
tricking
going.
y'all.
Clippers in 7.
Gross.
As much as I hate it for us Thunder fans.
Well, sounds like Taylor hates America.
That's right. Yeah. No.
We've been knowing.
Wants the Clips to win.
Oh man. Well, guys, that's all I have on the docket. Anything else? We didn't go
hope-
through the chat questions. We've been going
I
for a
hope
while.
that the
Thank you
Los
guys for
Angeles teams
tuning in.
lose for forever. I hope they never win another game.
I would love to be wrong. Would love to be wrong. I'm with you there. Hey, do you guys see? Speaking of Los Angeles teams, you guys see LeBron strolling into Bronny's game with his BFF Drake and J.R. Smith.
Nice. Changed his number to number 6 too.
J.R. Smith was
Yeah, he
high as a.
That's a given.
I mean, right, correct. And then you have this picture of like Drake, and he's like pigeon-toed, like all like starstruck because he's next to LeBron. It's pretty funny. I'll send it to you guys. Anyways, all that to say, thank you all for tuning into the Uncontested. We appreciate you following along. Like I said, be sure to tune in on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. We're going into the Locker Room app, and we're doing some hangouts on Mondays and Fridays. And Wednesdays, we're actually doing series. We just wrapped up our Thunder player grades for this past season. Be sure to go back and listen to those if you have not already. And starting this coming Wednesday, we're actually going to dive deep. Shout out Jason Concepcion, and to some draft prospects. So be sure to tune in for that. Be sure to go and leave us a review where you listen to your podcast if you enjoy what you've heard. If you guys are listening to this live, I apologize. I don't have live sounders. We'll go back and edit those in. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Until next time, Thunder up.